Today's short and exciting video is going to be about decimals. So I'm going to switch my screen around here. You can take out a blank piece of paper. And on top, if you'd be so kind as to write decimals. Decimals. Just like with fractions, you'll have lots of notes under decimals. And the little subheading for today is how to change decimals to fractions. And there really isn't anything too terribly difficult about this. Let me give you an example. Change, here's our example. Change 0.25 to a fraction. And the one thing you always have to remember when we write fractions is you must make sure that when you change it to a fraction, you reduce. Okay, you're in 6th grade now. This is something you need to start doing. So how do we change 0.25 into a fraction? Well, if you think about how to say this number here as a decimal, when we say this number, this is called 25 hundredths. It is 25 hundredths. So guess what? It's pretty simple to figure out what that turns to as a fraction. It is 25 over 100. 25 over 100, which makes sense because if you think about money, that's 25 cents. It's 25 out of 100 cents in a dollar. And when you reduce 25 over 100, well, we suppose we could divide them by 5. First, if I divide them by 5, I get 5 over 20. But that's not reduced all the way because you can divide both of these by 5 again. And you're going to get 1/4, which you probably knew. 25 cents is 1/4 of a dollar. So that's not too bad. Let's try another one. What about if I said to change, sorry, hit the wrong button there. If I said to change 0.8 to a fraction. Now 0.8 to a fraction is, I'll change colors for you. 0.8 to a fraction is, this is 8/10. So as a fraction, it is 8 over 10. And then if I'm reducing that, I'm going to divide them both in half. I get 4/5. And that is reduced all the way. Kind of one thing that you'll see on this, maybe you can kind of see the pattern of this already, is that however many digits come after the decimal is how many zeros you put after the 1 when you put it in a fraction form. So for example, this one, 25 hundredths is 0.25. It had 2 digits after the decimal. It has 2 zeros. 0.8, 1 digit after the decimal, 1 0. So if I said this one, if I wanted to make 0.321 into a fraction, it's just going to be these 3 digits, 321, over 1 with how many zeros? 1, 2, 3. It's 321 over 1,000. That's kind of an ugly fraction, and I don't believe it can be reduced, so that's what it would be. So that is kind of the deal with that. Now, what also the book will want you to be able to do is also for you to be able to say decimals or read decimals. And maybe we should have done this first, but if I told you to write out in words 0.62, Okay, it's a pretty simple little process here. The first thing you want to do, and I'll write this down in steps. Number one is you say the number in front of the decimal. Say the number in front of the decimal. So in this case, it would be 0. That's what's in front of the decimal. Step number two, the only time in math when we read numbers out loud and say the word and is when we're talking about decimals. So you have to say or write the word and for the decimal. So if I'm writing this out or saying this, it's 0 and. Okay, step number three is you say the number after the decimal. And over here, what number is after the decimal? Well, that is 62. 60-2. Okay, so far right now I have 0 and 62. And your last step when you read a decimal is you need to say the place of the last digit. Say the place of the last digit. So what is the last digit in my number? What place is this 2 in? That 2 is in the hundredths place. So it is 0 and 62 hundredths. Make sure you put that TH on there. It is 0 and 62 hundredths. Another example, so I can tell you're dying for this. Let's say I have this. I've got 35.004. If I'm saying or writing this, it would be like this. I would say the number in front of the decimal, which is 35. There's my 35. I say and for the decimal. I say the number after the decimal, which in this case is just a 4. And I say the place of that last decimal. And if you look in your notes, this is the tenths place, the hundredths place. The 4 is in the thousandths place. It is in the thousandths place. So it said and written in words is 35 and 4 thousandths. 35 and 4 thousandths. And then, of course, probably the harder part is to actually take the words and write the decimal for it. So, for example, let's do one more here. 11 and 12 hundredths. Let's say I've got this. I have written out in words. Pretty sure when I get there. 11 and 12 hundredths. So really all you have to do is work backwards from what we just talked about up here. We know that the word and is the decimal point. It kind of separates those two things apart. In front of the decimal point is 11. And here you have to have 12 so that the last digit is in the hundredths place. So I've got a 12 here. And I need to make sure that the way this stands right now, my 2 is in the hundredths place. And if you look, the 1 is in the tenths place and the 2 is in the hundredths place. So this is correct. Now, if I had this, let me rewrite the whole thing again. 11 and this time let's make the 12 in the thousandths place. Okay, it's going to look very similar, except here's my 11, here's my and, here's my 12. But this time, because this says thousandths, the 2 has to be in the thousandths. That makes the 1 in the hundredths, and I need something in the tenths, and I have to put a 0 there. So that makes this 11 and 12 in the thousandths place. Okay, do you kind of get that? Hopefully that makes sense. One more. Let's go with this one. What if I said 5 and 5 thousandths? 5 and 5 thousandths. So again, this is my decimal splitting point. Here's my 5. Okay, now here is a common mistake. People see this 5 thousandths and they say, I'm just going to write 5,000 here, but that's not right. Okay, the 5 has to be in the thousandths place. So I'm going to erase this because I made a huge blunder there. Okay, 5. When I write the 5 out, it has to be in the thousandths place. That means I need to take a 0 up for the hundredths and a 0 for the tenths. 5 and 5 thousandths. If I would have kept the number like I had before, let's take a look at what this number really is. That was my mistake. This would be 5 and if you read this number, it's 500. The last digits in the thousandths place. 5 and 500 thousandths. This is 5 and 5 thousandths. So hopefully that helps you out. We're going to sign off for right now. Pull up my old stuff here. And wishing you a great day.